A devastating scene in Jasper, the first official look inside. A third of the town destroyed by fire. The rest was saved, but likely changed forever. We're just down the highway from Jasper National Park, where tonight the damage is still being assessed and residents processing what they've lost.
I am completely devastated. I'm in a state of shock.
Grief, frustration, and determination to return and rebuild.
If there are homes for some, there is community for all. We will all get back.
Canada's soccer scandal grows. Drones used to spy, and not just in Paris.
Makes me ill, it makes me sick to my stomach.
The reputational damage as the Olympics begin. And what an opening it was, featuring a Canadian comeback. Céline Dion's return to stage as the games begin.
From CBC News, this is The National with Ian Hennemensing, near Jasper, Alberta.
At the end of what's already been an incredibly difficult week, tonight there's new heartache for many Jasper residents. I'm here at the police roadblock near Hinton, Alberta. This is the closest most people can get to the fire-ravaged community. But late today, a news camera was allowed in as the Premier, Mayor, and others saw the damage up close. And here's some of the video, the first official view of the destruction. These will be the first images that some people see of their own homes, businesses, and neighborhoods. About a third of the community's buildings, officials say, were destroyed when that wildfire roared in. It was safe for officials to see the town today because the fire is less active. It's cooler here. There has been some rain, but there is fear that winds could again fuel the flames. Firefighters are still there. They're putting out hot spots. Karen Pauls walks us through the damage already done.
Charred buildings, rubble, ashes. This is what's left after a monster wildfire ripped through Jasper this week, destroying 1/3 of the buildings, mostly homes. Officials say 358 structures in a town of 1,113 have been destroyed by walls of flame 100 meters high, pushed by winds 125 kilometers an hour.
The pain that will be felt almost defies description. It is beyond comprehension.
Critical infrastructure like the hospital, schools, and wastewater treatment plants have been spared. But the fire is still not under control, covering an estimated 36,000 hectares. So the evacuation order is still in place. Everyone cautions re-entry will be slow.
Power and gas do remain shut off at the town site, and in the coming days, ATCO is going to work to restore power and gas. They have to do this building by building to make sure that it is safe.
There are questions about whether the community was prepared, whether the forest had been properly managed, whether this was a disaster waiting to happen. Officials rejected that.
The preparation that has been done here has actually been first class.
We live in a forested mountain community. Most of us live there by choice. We love that environment. It is our home and our recreation, and we want to be in the mountains, we want to be in nature, and that means our community is exposed to the threat of wildfire.
As for the mayor, the tour included his home, now leveled. Even so, he would never live anywhere else.
So many others are going to go through the same thing.
Such a powerful moment, the mayor finally seeing what's left of his house, and we want to play a little more of that.
We moved in time for my second birthday. I was telling the minister, I think somewhere in there is a photograph of me with a birthday cake and sitting on packing boxes when I was 2. And now it's memories of family and fun.
That is the mayor of Jasper talking about seeing most of his house left in ruins.
You know, you were here when he just spoke to us at the corner, and he talked about how he lived in that house since he was 2 years old. He was struck by the fact that his garage was still standing with the bike still inside, and he expressed some hope that he'd be able to ride them again on the trails around here. The Premier pointed out that his house was the only one burned on his block, which just shows the path and the wrath of that fire. And Ian, you know, he talked about how other people will be experiencing this soon. The RCMP told us this afternoon that they did a walkthrough. They knocked on every door of every house in Jasper the other day, and at first there were 41 people still in their houses. By the end of the day, only one elderly couple remained, and they couldn't leave on their own because of mobility and those kinds of challenges. So it took 2 officers 30 minutes to get them out safely, and shortly after, their house burned down.
And the headline remains, as far as we know, everybody got out safely. That is incredible. Karen, thank you so much. The evacuation from Jasper clearly did save lives, but those who fled are now confronting an uncertain future. And as Kyle Bax shows us, that is taking a toll.
Jamie Breeze is struggling to cope. She's lived in Jasper, Alberta her whole life.
This is the first time all day I haven't been crying. I'm completely rattled. I can't sleep. I haven't eaten since leaving my home.
She was among the roughly 25,000 residents and tourists who fled late Monday. Officials say that monster wildfire destroyed about 360 buildings, which could include her house that she saved up for many years to buy.
I don't know. I saw a map today, and I saw a video online, and my whole neighborhood is demolished. It looks like an apocalypse, and I'm waiting for an update on my own personal home.
For now, she's staying with a friend in the tiny community of Valemount, grateful knowing others are sleeping in cars and trucks. The nearby evacuation center provides breakfast, lunch, and dinner for evacuees, at least 60 people at every meal. Much needed mental health services are offered too.
Just to take a breath and have a few minutes to assess what's going on, and to have that reassurance that, you know what, it might look bad, but it's going to be okay.
Evacuees are scattered throughout BC and Alberta, often bleary-eyed from sleepless nights and long hours on the road.
It's a nightmare, but we can do nothing about it.
I'm just expecting the worst when I go back there so I don't suffer more.
They're safe but stressed out, surviving but unsure what comes next.
I want to go home so bad, so bad. I want to go home and start rebuilding and helping everyone rebuild.
Evacuation centers like this one in Calgary will be closing down over the next few days, but the province is speeding up payments to evacuees. People can apply at evacuationpayment.alberta.ca. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
The Red Cross is also collecting financial donations to help people who have been affected by the Jasper wildfire and other wildfires burning in Alberta. And the governments of Alberta and Canada say they will be matching individual donations. Those can be made at redcross.ca. Many evacuees also run businesses in Jasper, but it could take months or even years for some to reopen. And as Anis Hidari shows us, livelihoods are on the line.
A lot has been destroyed in Jasper, from homes to businesses.
We're assuming everything's gone, so that means all our trucks, trailers, the other rafts, we had probably 15 rafts, they're all gone.
Before the fire, Katrina Turcotte's company ran scenic rafting trips. Now her family has to start all over again.
We're new business owners. We only took over 2 years ago. So we have a lot of loans. I don't know how we're going to pay them. The business side of this is insanely stressful for us.
Other businesses hope they aren't physically wiped out.
I don't know if there's been any kind of like smoke damage or environmental damage or water damage. We don't know.
There are worries about the future too.
Once the evacuation order is lifted, does my insurance continue to cover me, or do we have to get back to work? But it's not going to be the same. I mean, September and October are massive for the tourism industry.
Jasper's mayor says it's a long road ahead.
And the rebuild could take years.
But it's too early to know exactly what's needed and what it will cost.
I would estimate that we are going to be in the hundreds of millions. I'm optimistic that it is not going to be the same devastation that we've seen in Fort McMurray or Slave Lake.
Though it's also impossible to compare to previous wildfires because Jasper is unique.
It's priceless. You cannot wrap your head around both the immediate consequences in terms of the impacts to the natural environment, but also to the people that have happened in the town.
Impacts businesses are already feeling.
I've just started digging in and like calling insurance and making the phone calls we have to make. But unless you've been through this, you have no idea where to even start with this. It's insanely overwhelming.
A heavy burden on business owners who can't go home yet. Anis Haidari, CBC News, Calgary.
Tonight, people from all over Canada are remembering the connections they have made in Jasper.
We did a rafting trip, and our bus driver has been driving a bus there for 30 years, and our tour guide, 25 years.
Coming up later, we'll hear from visitors about their cherished memories and what's in store for residents who fled the fire. An intense firefight is also underway in Northern California tonight. The so-called park fire spawned a fire tornado captured spiraling through the sky. In just days, the fast-moving inferno has doubled in size, burning dozens of buildings to the ground and forcing thousands from their homes. Officials say the fire was sparked by a man who pushed a burning car into a ravine on Wednesday. He has been charged with arson. We have new details about the scope of the Canada soccer drone scandal. It started with the defending gold medal winning women's team. Thomas Douglas shows us why Canada's men's team is also under scrutiny.
It's David for Canada!
Weeks after the men's national team thrilled Canadians with a historic run at the Copa America tournament, now comes a blunt admission from Canada Soccer's top executive.
I'm aware of an instance of attempted drone usage during Copa America.
The revelation adds a new layer to the growing scandal surrounding the National Soccer Federation. Amid allegations, staff used drones to record opponents training in private. Canada Soccer now describes the spying as systemic.
Make no mistake, there's absolutely no room for this kind of conduct.
Longtime captain Christine Sinclair insists we were never shown or discussed drone footage in team or individual meetings I've been present for. And Canada Soccer says the current men's head coach, Jesse Marsh, denounced the practice. His predecessor is now distancing himself too.
In my time as a head coach at an Olympic Games or World Cup, we've never been involved in any of those activities.
So who knew and since when? Canada's women's squad is competing without their head coach, with Bev Priestman sent home from the Olympics, her future uncertain. After New Zealand's training was twice recorded with a drone, leading to a Canada Soccer staffer's arrest and ejection. Concerns now that the fiasco could cast a shadow over Canada's gold medal win 3 years ago, leading to this visceral reaction.
Makes me ill, makes me sick to my stomach.
Cara Lang, another former national team member, is beside herself too.
The current players, regardless of how they perform in this tournament now, there will be a black mark on their success.
Canada Soccer says it won't estimate how long its independent external review will take, but based on what the Federation already knows, it's not ruling out multiple firings. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
Okay, now to the games themselves and today's opening ceremony. An elaborate outdoor show with world-class athletes ferried down the Seine River. And as Salima Shivji shows us, it culminated in a Canadian showstopper.
Gray, rainy, but nonetheless spectacular. Under far from ideal weather, France kicked off the Olympic Games in style. With nods to its revolutionary past and its defiant present.
Greece.
The audacious opening ceremony sailed down the River Seine.
Ireland.
As thousands of athletes waved from barges. It was an ode to French culture and song, with some famous international faces thrown in. Lady Gaga peeking from behind giant pink feathers, belting out a French number. The risky open-air ceremony went off without a hitch under a security blanket. tens of thousands of officers, and a no-fly zone. Despite coordinated arson attacks hours before the event that crippled France's high-speed rail system. Saboteurs got at several key train lines. Deliberate malicious acts, officials say.
The police force are looking after, of course, the people who have committed this.
The disruption to travel isn't over, but tonight, Olympians sailed comfortably down the river. Canada's contingent, led by track and field star Andre de Grasse and Quebec weightlifter Maude Charon, a gold medal winner who, humble as ever, told me earlier she still can't believe her luck.
My first Olympic in my mind. It's my first non-COVID Olympic. It's a huge honor. It's stressful, though.
She pulled it off. They all did. One of France's biggest soccer stars, Zinedine Zidane, brought out the flame and handed it to other sports icons. Until the cauldron lit, floated skywards, building to an emotional finale. Canada's own Céline Dion, France's darling too, gracing the stage for the first time in several years. Singing Edith Piaf's classic, L'Hymne à l'amour, a poignant end to an Olympic ceremony, the likes of which we've never seen before. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Paris.
Let's bring in Adrian in Paris. Adrian, what a spectacular opening ceremony. What stood out for you?
Everything. This was like a cultural candy store. It was big, it was loud, it was unapologetic in everything it did. This canvas is immense. The reins were heavy, and yet they were treated like a character. There were some amazing moments in there. These statues of these great women who have influenced the world rose from the Seine to look at the athletes. The athletes became the art, and the whole world of France and everything that makes this place special was looking at those athletes. The whole evening was extraordinary.
And let's talk about that performance by Céline Dion.
That is the moment. That is my moment. That's the moment for I would venture for just about everyone here. If you know anything about Céline Dion, and I think we all do now, it's that she has missed singing so much. It is hard for her to do this. She has been coping with this disease. She knew she would sing again. What a place for her to sing. And she sang L'Hymne d'amour. The reason why this is important, it's an Edith Piaf song. She sang it in 2015 out of respect for the people who died in the terror attacks of 2015. Why is that important? That's the year that Paris bid for the Olympics. So just when Paris was vulnerable and wounded and closing in, the mayor of Paris said, you know what? We're going to bid for the Olympics. We're going to bring the world to Paris. That's what they did tonight. Celine Dion put the cap on that, and people are so happy for her and certainly so happy for this city.
Adrian, in Paris again tonight. Thanks. That performance by Celine Dion comes after weeks of anticipation, marking a dramatic comeback for the Canadian star. The reaction to her emotional performance here in Canada, next. Plus, a landmark ruling from the Supreme Court on a First Nations treaty.
Got to my heart as, it's finally here.
The court's very pointed criticism of the Crown. And later, in the midst of the flames in Jasper, a BC teen sprung into action.
It's huge for me to be able to say that I help people.
How she led a group of hikers to safety. We're back in 2. What better stage for her comeback than the Eiffel Tower? Another look at Celine Dion tonight at the opening ceremony of the Olympics. Her first public performance since telling the world she was diagnosed with stiff person syndrome. Lindsay Duncombe now with a reaction from fans who have long waited and hoped to hear her sing again.
Celine Dion nailed it. And as that familiar, powerful voice floated through this Vancouver Olympic watch party, tears.
And her sound is very going deep in me. I really love her.
Just so proud to see her singing again because we didn't really know if we'd see this day.
More emotion as fans watched in Paris. Contrast the glittering spectacle on the balcony of the Eiffel Tower with what the world has recently seen of the superstar. Silenced and suffering.
Have been diagnosed with a very rare neurological disorder.
Dion let cameras follow her excruciating battle with stiff person syndrome. Until today, she hadn't performed since revealing her diagnosis in 2022.
I miss it so much. The people. I miss them.
Although she told CBC's Adrian Arsenault, expect a comeback.
Oh, I'll sing again. I'll sing again.
Dion's performance had been hinted at all week, never officially confirmed. The consummate entertainer creating a crescendo of anticipation. All the hype made this Montreal tribute artist nervous. Would her hero's voice hold up? Did it ever?
The first notes of her voice was, wow, she's her, she's back.
Praise poured in, including from people who share Dion's difficult diagnosis.
Because it's so emotional. I mean, one of our community members just posted in all capitals, OMG, she did it, double exclamation point. It gives people hope. It really does.
Add hope, then, to the countless emotions Dion's talent has shared. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Much more ahead, including another major story we're following, a historic ruling from the Supreme Court of Canada.
It's awesome. I'm so happy for you.
The emotional moment more than 100 years in the making. And we have more on the devastation from Jasper, including my interview with Alberta's Premier, plus the voices of Canadians who love the Rocky Mountain town.
It really is exciting when you can see the shaded silhouette of the mountains in the background and you know you're on your way.
The memories they're sharing about Jasper. The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Barack and Michelle Obama have endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris in her bid for president. The endorsement came in a video where Harris accepted a phone call from the former first couple. Bill and Hillary Clinton have also thrown their support behind Harris.
The greatest dinner I've ever had.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump at his Florida home today. It was their first in-person meeting in nearly 4 years. Netanyahu said he hoped progress was being made on a ceasefire in Gaza. Trump also dismissed reports of a rift between the two leaders. The meeting comes a day after Netanyahu met with President Biden and Vice President Harris in Washington. Strong words today from the Supreme Court of Canada. In a unanimous decision, it found that the federal and Ontario governments failed to honor treaties with two First Nations groups, calling their actions for over a century a mockery. Kate McKenna now on the historic decision.
It's awesome. I'm so happy for you.
This moment was over 100 years in the making. Members of the White Sand and Red Rock First Nations learning the Ontario and federal governments must pay up and honor the Robinson treaties to the tune of billions of dollars.
I'm very emotional about hearing the news that came down when our legal team came down and informed us that we had won. You guys got to my heart that it's finally here.
The 19th century Robinson treaties were signed by the Anishinaabe of the Upper Great Lakes. They ceded their resource-rich land in northern Ontario in exchange for annual payments. Those payments were supposed to increase, but didn't, capped at $4 per person 150 years ago. The Supreme Court calls this a mockery of the treaty obligations and says it must be dealt with.
Yeah, it's been a sore spot. Yeah, for many years, for many of our people. I wish this was done right away back in 96 or 99 or whatever year it started. I wish it didn't take this long, 25 years.
The ruling will be costly for the Ontario and federal governments. A deal must be reached within 6 months, and First Nations have argued for as much as $126 billion, money for the community to use for services like healthcare and education.
Well, my message to Canada and Ontario is come to the table with an open heart and in the spirit of reciprocity.
The clause calling for the payments to rise annually is unique to these treaties. So some lawyers say this decision is not likely to affect future treaty cases. But the chiefs of the communities involved say this money will be life-changing for this generation and for future generations. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. Treasuring the war-torn remnants of Palestinian art and culture. We'll see why one artist no longer paints in color. But first, so many Canadians are grieving what's been lost in Jasper.
Everybody has your back because you are a national treasure.
The lasting memories of great old times. But let's start with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. She toured the devastated town today to see exactly what those flames took away. Premier Smith, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Tell me what your first impressions were as you drove into Jasper today.
Well, the way we drove in, there wasn't much damage, and so it was encouraging to see that there is still a lot of the town standing. And we know from having driven around a bit that there's key infrastructure that is there. 70% of the town, although there may be smoke damage, is going to be the basis from which to build. And then we went into the areas where there was a lot of fire damage, and that was really hard. There are some blocks where 1 or 2 homes are gone. There's some communities where every home is gone. And so it's going to be hard as people look at the images and have the memories that they're processing and think about what it means for them to return, what they're going to return to, what kind of life they're going to have as they rebuild. There's an awful lot of work to do.
So first and foremost, it's the loss from the people whose homes are gone, no question. I want to talk a little bit about iconic Jasper, because for a lot of Canadians and people beyond our borders, it's what they think about. The big hotels, the landmarks. How did they fare?
I think people saw a couple of the historic hotels that had been on that main strip since I believe the 50s and 60s. I think people saw that with some of the images that were already circulating, them engulfed in flames. And that's going to be hard for people to see, because those would be those images that you recall when you come into town. I was pleased to hear at Jasper Park Lodge that most of their structures have remained standing. They've had some damage, and they're preparing already to open again. But people will find that there's a lot remaining that they will know and love. We wanted to make sure that there were a few things, like the hospital looks great, the schools look great. We know that water and wastewater is still intact, and those are important for getting people back. School starts in a month's time. People need to know that they've got healthcare close to home. And so I think that when people come in, there's going to be areas, of course, where it's just going to be a devastating gut punch, and then others that will give them some hope that they'll be able to see recovery and the town getting back to normal.
These kinds of things can be life-changing for people. Fortunately, lives were not lost, but certainly lives have been changed. What about for you? As you see all that, is there anything in terms of your role as Premier, in terms of policy, that you're thinking, you know what, I need to change moving forward?
Well, I can see, I went through the floods as the MLA for the area back in 2013. I was on the air covering the Fort McMurray fires. Prior to that, I'd visited the Slave Lake fire site. And so I've seen what has happened in the immediate aftermath, but I've also seen what happens 10 years on and how communities can really recover. It takes some time. There's some things that we've had to talk about. How do you remove all the debris? How do you deal with some of the toxic waste that's there? How do you make sure that enough material comes in to start the reconstruction? And so all of us are already beginning to think of what do we do to make sure that we can accelerate that and be able to rebuild, because these kinds of instances where you see so many structures get destroyed at once, it can be really difficult to get started, but every one of us is committed to making sure that we can get that started quickly.
Some people are saying, what about cuts to firefighting? What about dealing with pine beetle, dead wood? Anything do you think is going to change?
I would say we changed last year because we realized that there was a lot of investment that we needed to make. So my Minister of Forestry and Parks, he advocated for a 50% increase to his budget. So we now have the highest forest fire budget that we've ever had. We also made sure to put a higher contingency away because last year we had 1.5 billion and we used it all. So this year we increased it 2 billion.
Literally 10 seconds left. Do you know when people are going to get to go back into Jasper?
I would say I'm already feeling it in my lungs that the air was really bad. And so that has to clear for sure. They have to douse all of the fires as well. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done there. Fort McMurray, it took 28 days to get people back. So I would say that people just should know that it's not going to be quick, that these things have to take place so that it's a safe environment to return to.
Premier Smith, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And so thousands of Jasper residents out of their homes tonight, finding shelter where they can. And Nick Purden shows us what it's like to face the fact that the town where you live will never be the same.
This is Valemont, British Columbia. Now, the population here more than doubled over the past few days. 1,500 people from Jasper sought refuge here from the fire.
And jambalaya is right here still, so...
People like Wes Shin. He was a sous chef at Earl's in Jasper before the fire. Now Wes spends his time here at a local church.
Tell me what you've been doing.
So yeah, I just been working here as much as I could after getting evacuated. I just needed something to do to keep my mind at ease.
What do you know about your own place, your own home?
I'm pretty sure it's gone. I'm expecting it to be, and if it's there, then I'm happy. But right now, I'm just finding work here. I just found an apartment that gave me 2 weeks of free rent. So just I'll be here for 2 weeks at least, helping out here as well, anywhere else I can. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it's gone though.
At the local community center, evacuees wait for dinner. Wendy Hall found out her house is gone.
We lost our home, and just trying to piece back together what next plans are.
What's it like to say that we lost our home?
It's funny because yesterday if I said that I would just start to cry. I just probably feel numb today. But I live there, that's my home. We will rebuild. We're gonna rebuild. I'm not going anywhere. It's where I live. It's tough, it's really tough. We loved our home and we'd been in Jasper almost 30 years and it was my home. Fleeing on Monday night, I almost grabbed our stack of ski passes from 20 years, 30 years, and I didn't, and I'm kind of regret that, but we will rebuild. I know we will, yeah.
These folks?
Here I also meet Jasper's deputy mayor. Helen Kelleher, MP, won't forget Valemont.
What would you say to the people of Valemont?
The people of Valemont have been incredible. This community has been amazing. They've taken us into their homes, they have fed us. They're here to be here for us. From the bottom of my heart, this community, I want to thank them.
The natural beauty of Jasper and its surroundings has drawn countless Canadians to visit here over the decades. And tonight they too are feeling a profound loss. Anya Zolojowski breaks down their precious memories.
When I was younger, you really had that feel like if you were from Edmonton, Jasper was your kind of little secret place.
So as fires continue to burn in Jasper, there has been an outpouring of support and grief on social media. So X, Instagram, Facebook, people are coming out from across Canada to share their favorite memories with Jasper, what Jasper meant to them, and condolences for those who are the most affected. It's clear that there is just a massive sense of mourning. Posts like this one of my favorite places in the world is burning. Or this, I will treasure the memories, felt like paradise. Devastated, absolutely heartbroken for Jasper.
Well, my name's Rob Fernicola and I live in Mississauga, Ontario. One of the fondest memories I have, and this will probably resonate with you, is when you're driving to Jasper. You drive about 2 hours and you're going through the prairies, and then things slowly begin to change. And it really is exciting when you can see the shaded silhouette of the mountains in the background and you're on your way. There's a mountain where it looks like there's I'm going to say an elderly man that's lying on like his head is on his back and he looks like he's staring up in the sky. And it's sort of a little sad when you leave because that's kind of the last thing you see the man looking, and then that's the end of the trip. And I remember that from 13 years old, and it's been 37 years. And as soon as I drove, I saw that mountain. I'm like, okay, it all sort of came back, and I'm like, man, I can't believe I remembered this from a child, remembering seeing that as we're coming in and leaving Jasper. I think heartbreaking is the right answer. For us, or at least for me, you forget how many people have lived in Jasper and worked there for 25, 30, 35 years. Like, we did a rafting trip, and our bus driver has been driving a bus there for 30 years, and our tour guide, 25 years.
I'm Mark Baxter, and I'm from Edmonton, Alberta. My grandpa ran a business in Jasper, which some people might be familiar with, on Main Street, Baxter's Gift Shop. It's our old family business, which he sold later in life, but the name stayed Baxter's, which has always been a great connection for our family and time we go back to the community. So just a lot of good memories, and not knowing what we'll be walking into next time we go back there.
My name is Leanna Haynes, and I'm currently living in the Noose Bay on Vancouver Island. This would have been 1995, so 29 years ago. Yeah, my son just turned 30 in May, and then that was the pup in the water.
Oh, how cute.
Chasing a stick.
What was the pup's name?
Pepper. And
Pepper.
our next dog was Jasper, actually.
Do you have any nice memories interacting with locals, business owners, anyone that left a mark or an impression?
The people just being friendly and receptive, and like even the one place on the main drive there, Jasper Pizza, they let you bring your pets there, so we would stop in and have pizza, and the pets could be out on the patio, like off to the side. So that was lovely. That was the thing too about Jasper, like the amount of wildlife. It was amazing, like the herds of elk and bears. Yeah, that was really special. So I think about them too with this fire. Cherish our parks, and I think really people have to take action on climate change, because as I wrote to you, I saw over the years driving out through Jasper, and when you get on the west side of town, that's where the trees are really heavy, and you'd see the pine beetle devastation on the trees, and so like I said, I was always afraid something like this would happen.
If you were to write a love letter to Jasper right now, what would you say?
I would say, I'm thinking about all of you, and hang in there. Everybody has your back, because you are a national treasure. You're not just Jasper, you're for everybody. It was just such a lovely place, so many great memories there.
We're staying on the story for you here in the Jasper area. For now, though, let's turn to another part of the world. Coming up, in the ruins of Gaza, the work of artists has also become a casualty.
Not all of these are just paintings about the occupation or about the violence being done to them. It's also about the beauty that they see.
Margaret Evans takes us to a gallery trying to bring it all together. That's next on The Breakdown. The Art of War in Gaza, works of creation put on display amid the relentless destruction. Some of this work lives on after the artist who made it was killed in the carnage. What does it all say about the people whose lives have been changed forever? Margaret Evans takes us inside an exhibit where works of art are documenting a way of life under deadly attack.
Legacy writ large across the walls of the Palestinian Museum near Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. This is the work of Gaza's artists gathered in, what's left of it, a stocktaking of sorts, given what little remains of Gaza itself. The buzz of a drone runs on a loop through the exhibition, along with video images of the war and piles of debris the length of the floor. But the art, according to Majda Darwish, a videographer at the museum, isn't necessarily tethered to the conflict or by it.
Not all of these are just paintings about the occupation or about like the violence being done to them. It's also about the beauty that they see or the beauty that they want to see or experiences they might have had.
The paintings of 120 artists are on display. 5 have been killed in the war, their names marked with a black band. Heba Zakut was killed in an Israeli airstrike in October with 2 of her children, her signature style distinctive. Many of the artists are amongst the vast number of displaced inside Gaza, including Basil El-Malkusi, whose application of color used to be his hallmark. Since the start of the war, he uses only charcoal, and by choice.
The war has changed us all completely, not only artistically.
El-Malkusi is now living in a tent in southern Gaza with his family. When he does find colored paint not easy, he uses it to teach children in the camp, to remind them they are children.
They're carrying stress much older than their years. Children are in the streets picking firewood to cook. Children are going from place to find water.
12-year-old Elaine Al-Ajla says the painting helps her forget the bad stuff. We love to paint together, she says, not everyone by themselves. El-Malkusi says the loss of Palestinian cultural heritage is devastating, from libraries and museums to ancient mosques. He says there isn't a single cultural institution left standing in Gaza, including the contemporary art studio called Shababik that he and others founded more than a decade ago. It was destroyed, he says, during the Israeli military's second siege of the nearby Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City in March.
In the building, there were a large number of paintings and works by artists of different generations from inside and outside Gaza. It's gone. It's all under the rubble.
Including much of his own work. Even what he sketches today is at risk. The spray he uses to set the charcoal to stop it from blurring, hard to find. Hairspray, an occasional substitute, and finding it secondary to feeding his family, who've already been displaced twice. It's not a word he likes.
From the beginning, I didn't like the word displaced person because we are still in Gaza. We're still in our country.
And the West Bank exhibition has become one of its guardians, preserving not just the artist's paintings, but the layers of memory and insight contained within them.
Artists have always played an important role in documenting what happens in wartime. These pieces were created to honor the victims of the October 7th attacks. An exhibit in Israel earlier this year drew attention to what they suffered. Next, how a teenage firefighter led hikers to safety in Jasper.
I said, this is where I'm going, let's go if you're coming.
Her brave rescue is our moment. You're looking at Colleen Canal. She's an 18-year-old firefighter who was in Jasper when the flames were closing in on the town. That's when she sprung into action and led 16 hikers to safety. Colleen's act of bravery is our moment.
It was my family friend who actually made mention to me that there was an alert. And then at that time, after studying the smoke patterns and the wind changes, I decided we need a plan in place. So I hiked the 5 minutes up the trail and evacuated them all out. What was going through my mind at this point in time was the fact that there was other people who were completely unaware of the situation that was happening because there was no service. From that point, I was just a complete stranger telling them they needed to leave. I said, this is where I'm going, let's go if you're coming. Everybody had a choice. A couple jokes were made to get people laughing. When I was younger, we've had our community of firefighters and we do parades and we got to see the fancy lights and stuff. My big inspiration for that was we could see how the families would react when their loved one would come home. It's huge for me to be able to say that I help people. At the end of the day, we have all got families we want to go home to.
18 years old, so remarkable poise by her, but also a shout out to volunteer firefighters. They are doing really good service right across the country, but especially right now here in Alberta. So many stories of volunteer firefighters in and around Jasper. In fact, our plan is to speak to one of them on Sunday's show about what she has endured. That is the National for July 26th near Jasper, Alberta. You can join me Sunday for Cross Country Checkup on CBC Radio and CBC News Network. And in fact, one of our topics will be memories of Jasper. And later that night, back for the National. I'm Ian Hannamansing. Good night.